Thank you so much, Mr. Arvind, for giving us such a opening welcome remark. I guess we all can agree that being women is not easy, let alone being a successful woman. My mother still, she complains about how she wanted to become a doctor, but she could not because she had a lot of responsibilities. Nonetheless, she is still one of the greatest leaders I have in my life. But today we are here to celebrate women who have not only excelled in their personal journey, but the professional journey as well. Women who have overcome all the obstacles to the success they owe to themselves, right? So when the panelists today take few steps and move to the stage, it may seem like they only had to take few steps to the success. But I'm sure we all can agree again that it's not true. It has been a very long journey, lot of obstacles to overcome and challenge, right? So today we are going to unveil some of the amazing journey of the successful women leaders who are here among us today, the kind of career path they carved for themselves, the obstacle they overcame, and the lessons learned along the way. With that note, I would like to invite our first panelist, Dr. Akshata Rao. Dr. Akshata is the Associate Director, Global Regulatory and Safety Medical Writing at Merck Healthcare R&D India. She has 18 years of experience in clinical research, medical writing, pharmacovigilance, medical data review, clinical trial data transparency, and quality processes. Dr. Akshata has done Bachelor's in Dental Surgery, PG Diploma in Clinical Research, and MBA in Pharmaceutical Management. Can we have one more round of applause for Dr. Akshata? Our next panelist is Shalini Sankarshana. Thank you. Shalini is the Managing Director of Planview India. She is a technology leader with 2 decades of experience in driving innovation and scaling global enterprises platform. She is a mentor and advisor in India's GCC and startup ecosystems. She excels in fostering entrepreneurship and high-performing teams. Passionate about people and products, she has transformed businesses through strategic leadership and customer-centric solutions. One more round of applause for Shalini. Our third panelist for today is Shreya Dhawal. Shreya is an exceptional learning and development professional. Apart from being an entrepreneur, she has also scaled L&D for brands like HCL, Greenway Health, and Razorpay. Currently, Shreya serves as the head of L&D and DE&I at Broadridge. Our last panelist for the first discussion is Maya John. Maya brings over 20 plus years of global experience into strategic organization and talent management. A proud alumnus of MIT Manipal, XLRI Jamshedpur, and Santa Carla University. She has worked with brands like GE, Sasken, Intervac. Not only has she won numerous awards, but she also wore various advisory hats too. And currently, Maya serves as the Chief People Officer at Verse Innovation. A huge round of applause for Maya. While the stage is being rearranged, I would like to invite one of the best moderators that we have today, Venkatesh Srinivasan, Venky as he's fondly known as. Venky is the co-founder and CEO of Nexus Consulting, a knowledge enhancement firm based in Bangalore. He is a well-known quiz master and has hosted hundreds of prestigious quiz shows for organizations like RBI, the NDA, Indian Navy, Shiv Nadar University, HDFC Ergo, Bihar IAS Officers Association, and many others. And do you want to know a secret? Yes? No? So if you ever wondered where is Kaun Banega Crorepati getting all their questions from, your chase to the $1 million question ends here. So over to you, Venki.
Thank you. Hi everyone, good morning. Ladies and the very few gentlemen who are here. Very, very rare and nice to see this. Arvind talked about, diversity hire. As you can see, definitely I am the diversity hire on stage here on this panel, and very happy to be in this position. With these amazing leaders. What we're going to do today in this very first session is kind of set the very broad context for what you're going to hear through the day. We'll talk to these amazing professionals about their journeys, about how their careers have panned out over the last many years that they've worked in the industry and reached the positions that they've reached today, who've been their inspirations, and how do they continue to inspire people and drive some of these initiatives related to equity and inclusion at the respective organizations. But before we start, let's just get a quick sense of the group here. How many of you here with, say, less than 5 years of corporate work ex? Okay, that's a few. And how many of you in the 5 to 10 year work experience range? Okay. And how many of you in the 10 years plus work experience range? Okay, good, great. So we have a lot of people who are inching their way towards leadership, I think, and so this should be rather useful. What we'll do is spend about 40 odd minutes in the conversation and allow all of our panelists to express their views, and then we'll turn it over to you for some questions. If you have some questions, please keep noting them down and you can ask them right at the end. But let me ask a question before we start, which will kind of set the context for today. How many of you roughly follow cricket? You have some idea of cricket. I'll ask you one simple trivia question that everybody thinks they know the answer to. Who is the first person to score a double century in one-day cricket? You can even Google this if you like and tell me what the answer is. Okay, so Dr. Akshata says it's Sehwag. Sorry? You can Google the answer and you can find out and tell me in the first 2-3 Google searches what you think the answer is. Internet signal is bad, okay.
Phone a friend.
So it's the standard answer you'll get to this is, something like Sehwag. Most people will say it's Sachin Tendulkar. Because he scored 200 in Gwalior. But the reality of this, the answer to this question is actually a lady cricketer called Belinda Clark from Australia, who scored it 10 years before Sachin Tendulkar did. Okay. So those are the type of things that are often overlooked in the larger space where multitude of factors, including branding and PR, end up playing overshadowing actual achievements. So on that note, let's get started, and I will start with Maya, simply because she's on one end of the table and also because we've worked together in the same organization at different points of time and graduated from B school the same batch. So Maya, tell us a little bit, 2000 XLRI, and then how has your career panned out over the last 2.5 decades or so? What have been some of the key milestones that you've kind of achieved over the working career?
All right. So I will admit that it is still overwhelming when I sit on a stage like this, because like I think Mr. Arvind said and Venkat has mentioned, there's many things that's obvious, but I think the mystery is in what is not. So I just wanted to highlight that it could not, my career could have been a non-starter, and I can't have this answer given without acknowledging all the invisible people who are there, with me on stage. So I grew up in a very small town in Alleppey. This was before Alleppey was on the tourist map. It was fairly unknown, small, ideal small town life. I had two people who were little different and kind of started the, let's say, career journey, which was my parents. Very different from the usual characters in that small village or small town, I would say. And there were two things. One was Maya, don't take anything you have or anything you see around you for granted. Because I was, grew up in a business family. Second was, you have to be financially independent. So from very early age, this was like brainwashing that was done nicely. And that led to me, fast forwarding, if I take, doing a computer science, engineering, and also XLRI. I think XLRI was a big turning point. It was a view to the rest of India, which I didn't have when I was growing up. And that led to many doors opening and some doors shutting as well. But I think if I summarize it, I would say I'm a product of two people who took a bet on me and many others who continued to take bets on me as I grew through the good days, the bad days, and everything in between. And today, I've worked at a couple of companies, and today I head the people function for Verse Innovation. We're the largest digital media tech conglomerate in India, homegrown company, Indian company, and hopefully headed to some big milestones shortly. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you so much. It's truly interesting to hear, and it's amazing that you have acknowledged that there are several visible and invisible forces at play in your long and starry career. Shreya, I'll come to you next. If you look back at your career over the years, what are some of the things that stand out for you today, and what moments would you look back at as being key inflection points?
Yeah. So any stage or any interaction I have, I am always, by virtue of the work trajectory I've had, it's always been very different and unique. And there have been times when I've been happy about it and proud about it, and there have been times I've been terribly anxious about it, and then there have been other times when I've been both. So today I think I feel more proud than otherwise. So I started my career as an MBA graduate, and then I got into Marico Industries. I thought it's going to be just how an MBA career pans out. And I started as a management trainee and very quickly got a grip of many functions in Marico, and it was a huge conglomerate. I think the first milestone that I had was the impatience, and at that time I didn't feel that was a milestone or a virtue, but I think the impulsivity and the impatience that I showed, and I felt very quickly this was not only the place for me, but also not the work for me. Also in the background for many years, I was always interested in facilitating, in training, in coaching, but I didn't know how to make a career out of that. And 15-20 years back, it was anyway difficult to start that way. We always had people who had served 15-20 years in a career and then became trainers. So at that time, for me to stand up and say, hey, I want to be a trainer, people will say, what experience do you have? So I think that first milestone was when I quit this and I started image consulting. I took up a business opportunity, which was very new at that time, in 2011. Image consulting was an industry which even people don't know very well today, which was all about how you groom people, how people are groomed, how people can present themselves very well, how people can feel confident about themselves. And I learned a lot about how to groom people, train people in the corporate setup. So it was a business course. I finished the course and I was like, okay, now what do I do? So they said, no, you do your own stuff. We'll help you in the beginning. We'll handhold you, but you have to be on your own. So the second milestone was when I built my website, and then I got married and moved to Bangalore, and that worked very well because we worked very hard on our SEO. So I've been a consultant for many years. We worked on our SEO, and Bangalore has been my saving grace because we had most corporate professionals here, and we also had a very serious need and demand of people who were needing presentation abilities, confidence abilities, speaking abilities, meeting etiquette, etc., and the world goes on, and wardrobe etiquette. So while I started as a fashion stylist and wardrobe consultant, moving to Bangalore gave me a real sense of what the struggles people really have. So I went on, and the work was going very well. I have worked with as many organizations and industries across spectrums. I would walk into offices and do trainings for an hour to 3 days. And then the third milestone, it's very important to talk about it, was when I was few years into my career, and then I felt that I have done enough one-on-ones and trainings, and there seems to be a pattern that is coming out of the people I'm working with. It is not that they only want presentation skills. It is something else. There is a background to it. There's a root cause to it. So I hired some interns from Christ College at that time. And I said, I have these 200 odd clients who I've worked with. Here are the papers, and I love pen and paper. And please help me understand what's really going on. Because I don't think they really need confidence abilities or presentation skills. There's something more happening. And from there, my journey in psychology began. Because until then, I didn't realize how important psychology was. So these young girls helped me understand that people have issues in childhood. There have been childhood traumas and issues which are showing up in the way people present and behave and talk in meetings and speak to their leaders. Because so many people came up to me that I'm very good one-on-one, but I can't speak on a stage. I can't present my thoughts in a big crowd. So I was like, what's really going on? And that led me to study counseling psychology in 2017. And I studied that from Montfort College. That opened a can of worms in my life. And I'm sorry, I'm talking about not one or two, but there have been many milestones. I'll just talk about the last two milestones. The next milestone was in 2019 when I got diagnosed with a mental health condition, and I got diagnosed with a personality disorder. So here was this one person who was walking on stage and talking to people about presentation, personality, grooming, etiquette, and now I find out that I have been suffering myself. So that also got in me a lot of empathy and understanding, and I think it's very natural now that comes to me. When I sit as a coach and a counselor to people in corporate offices, I come with a lot of genuine compassion and empathy because I know what it feels like to not be in your own skin. And from then on, pandemic happened, and then I was forced to come back to corporate because work wasn't coming as an independent consultant. At least 2020 was a very tough year for me. So then I got back to the corporate world, and last 4-5 years I have been in the corporate. And the latest milestone for me has been being in Broadridge, the organization I represent, where they saw that they instilled that faith in me that I could lead the entire leadership, learning, development track for the organization, and also take up huge bits of DE&I for them. And I think that, so today I'm also an executive coach, an ICF certified coach. And my main framework sits, and the heart of my work is around psychology and psychometric. I must have taken longer time, but I felt it's important to talk about this journey.
Thank you, Shreya. Thank you very much. That's really candid of you. Very, very inspiring. And to all the people who are kind of coming up your career paths, I think some of the points she mentioned about having a sense of mental calmness, being able to express yourself well, present, talk, these are all skills that will always hold you in good stead. And I'm truly amazed at how you've managed to be very non-straitjacketed in your career and take the paths as they come. So we'll talk more about that for sure. I'll come to Dr. Akshata next. You are kind of unique in this panel in the sense that you come from a rather more core medical kind of field, but you've had an interesting journey as well that has brought you to where you are at Merck, where there are a bunch of interesting things that you're doing, not just for India, but for the entire world sitting here in Bangalore. So tell us a little bit about how that journey has been.
Absolutely. Is it audible now? Yeah, fine. All right. Thank you for that question. So yes, I definitely have my own journey already, the way they've explained. So it is from the core to where I'm sitting today. And core being, as you've already heard my introduction, it's about dental surgery and then moving to take up a clinical research role. So it's been different, and those are also the situations where you need to make a decision for yourself, taking control of things. So I like the way you already put up, Shreya, also embracing your illness or anything that you're going through. So it could be a challenge that how you want to progress in life, making decisions which career path you need to take, and then not looking back. You need to continue. I think the only thing that you need to do is not quitting. So that's when you need the more strength there, especially the mental strength to continue that, okay, maybe this is the direction I need to head with. If you really think that's not, then take a step back and think, which is the other step you need to do. So that's what helps. And especially when I started back those days, it's 2004, 2005 when I completed, I didn't know there was anything called as clinical research existing, I mean, let alone the leadership role that I've taken up now. But then you still have to carve a niche career for yourself. And I thought, okay, putting up a clinic was one option, but then thought, okay, clinical research is a good option that I can take up because that helps you to work 5 days a week. And I got married the same year there, and then my husband was also studying, so that's when the clinical research happened. While I didn't think about I would continue for so long, thought that maybe once he completes his studies, I'll get back to my dentistry, post-graduation and get into that field. But I realized I fell in love with this career. I just continued there. And there were a few other things, the skills that I had, which I did not know back then, was reflecting there. I loved engaging with people. I loved doing a lot of trainings, coaching them. And especially I do reflect with the things that I've dealt with or undergone and what has been my strength. How have I overcome those? And then, thought that maybe this is somewhere I can help others, not necessarily that they follow the same route. Their learning curve can be shortened when you share your own experience. So that's been the key, and that also helps me or motivates me take up a lot of global initiatives, whether it is on empowering women employees or I do a lot of cross-functional training because I just want people to come out if they feel it's been monotonous. I've been working for 10 years, 15 years in the same function, same role. Why not think about something else? I mean, not necessary. It should be within, say, somebody's doing medical writing. I also come from medical writing background. They can think about moving into other function. It can even be moving to life science. It's okay. You just have to see what is that interests you. So it's okay to move. You need not take the same career as someone else, your peer's career. You need not, compare yourself in terms of title or what growth the other person has. You have to live your own journey. So you have to plan that. So that's how things change for me.
Lovely, amazing. Thank you so much. I think that last line you said that, you have to really live your own journey, I think is something very, very powerful and very true. And how sometimes accidents turn out to be, happy circumstantial changes for you in terms of the specific discipline that you fell in love with and were actually able to pursue. So that was great to hear. Let me come to you now, Shalini. So you've had an amazing career, and today you are country manager. You are, a P&L leader in this industry, and there aren't too many women leaders in the core tech space who are at the highest levels of leadership. What is this journey that has brought you here? What have been those key points of takeoff that have happened?
Thanks, Venki, and what amazing stories. One more round of applause for all the 3 women leaders, honestly. Yes, to be on this panel, honestly, because I was just hearing before I get to the so-called takeoff, and I'm hoping I'm still in the journey and there's a lot more to accomplish, and I'm probably still in midpoint. One of the reflections I was having, I think, through all the journeys is, and something I am currently also reflecting a lot about, how do we as a community of women, we are always in this dilemma of vulnerability and strength, humility and confidence, grace and aggression. Right? I think for me, that's one of the biggest dichotomy that we all go through. And when I put on the hat of leadership, especially when you're leading organizations, when you're responsible for a lot of people's careers and lives, and when there is market which is adverse to you, when there is business models that's changing, when you have things like AI coming and disrupting, I think this reflection of how can you continue to be graceful under pressure? How can you continue to lead not just people, but your own life with kindness? And how do you do that by continuing to be vulnerable? Making vulnerability as your strength. I think those have been a huge reflections. It's reflection because when I look back at my own journey also, I think all of these have helped. At one point, I'm sure I went through these moments where all of these felt like weaknesses.
I'm a core product of Bangalore. South Bangalore, Basavangudi. You can imagine seeing me. I continue to reflect those values. Have had the opportunity to travel, work, live in multiple countries, cities, but Bangalore still resides in me. So came back home a few years ago. And education, academics has been the core background in my whole family. So, that way very traditional, study hard, work hard, everything will fall in place has been the core value. And hard work has been at the core of everything, right? I think the value system also taught a lot of us, because it's called Asia Women. I think Asian generations are changing, but at the heart of Asian culture is, I think, humility has been at the heart of the culture. Through this journey, that's something which has not been easy to manage. How do you remain humble? But how do you continue to project yourself, your organization, your teams out there in the world? I think that's something which is reflective. I'm sure I'm seeing the nods in the room. Is reflecting for all of us. So that's been part of one of the journeys. Second is whether accident is the word you used. I think that was very, very common in my career journey. I did not plan my career, honestly. I loved what I was doing because of that whole value of, hard work, humility, you'll get better. You'll get value. I mean, I've just used that as the mantra. So, wherever there were opportunities, I have been following the flow. And have had a lot of gratitude for so many people, both consciously and unconsciously, who have supported me and navigated my journey. Because every time an opportunity was thrown, as a personality, I jump in and say, yeah, I'll be the first. I won't think what it is, how it is, am I capable, do I know what I'm doing, what are the risks? I think that's exactly how it's been, and I still am that, but I'm trying to be a lot more responsible right now. But it has helped. Not that I knew at the beginning of my career that disrupting yourself is the way to grow, but that's exactly what has happened. Through the disruption, confidence has grown. Confidence has grown not because I'm so-called an expert or I know exactly everything. Confidence has grown because I know there are tons of things I don't know. And confidence has grown because I'm realizing that even with tons of things that I don't know, every time I move my step forward, I can figure out my next step. I think that moving in micro steps and having the confidence to know that you can chart out your journey and listen, there are worst cases, but we'll get through it. I think that's been the big cornerstone. Again, these are all hindsight reflections, right? It's always rear view mirror. Third is very early on, I realized while I joined as a technologist, and at the heart of this thing was still technology, I loved being at the forefront of the business side of the house. So very early on, and especially when you work in global organizations, when you're sitting out of the so-called India, and remember 25 years ago when India, what we used to do was pretty much back office off the back office. That was a setting. But every single time I was able to break that, not because it was my power, because there was a lot of people around me who were helping me push that barrier. And I did not have too much of fear. Now thinking back, I'm like, Shalini, what stupidity were you doing is something I think back. But sometimes that helps. That innate faith in yourself. And now it's a conscious thing that, you believe in yourself. And I would get in front of customers, in front of businesses, sitting here, working, I don't know, God knows, God awful hours. Team of 60, 65 men / boys, and I'm the only girl. None of this mattered, right? Again, when I think back, the system was, while it was very, very, against is a strong word, but it was against a lot of women. But at the same time, I still believe that those 60 people in my team played a big role in where I am today. They gave me the confidence, but also the comfort that I could still continue to do that. I think that reflection has helped me even today. I have the opportunity of mentoring a lot of women, but also organizations. Those values still work. fearlessness in a way is helpful, because fearlessness is not that assuming I know everything, I'll solve everything. But fearlessness is understanding there will always be uncertainty. And how do you identify the next step? It's just that next step. You have to go 1,000 kilometers, but can you find out what is your next 10 feet? I think that's been a big part of my journey.
Wonderful. That is truly interesting to hear. You brought out several important and interesting things. I mean, a streak of fearlessness, recklessness, if you want to call it that, is sometimes a big trigger for growth. And many of you might be seeing that and experiencing that in your own careers as well. And this ability to just take the next step while you know that you have a long way to go and there will be uncertainties, I think is a very important insight. Right. So we've heard the broad career trajectories and graphs of all of our four leaders here on stage. The next question I want to ask, and we can go in any order, and perhaps Shreya, we can start with you, is how easy or difficult has it been to have role models along the way who've been sources of inspiration, who've been sources of guidance? Have they been, I'm sure all of us have role models who are internal in the sense of being in the corporate structure that you've worked in, and external, whether it might have been your parents or anybody else. I'm focusing a little bit more on the internal, people who've been core work role models in some sense. How difficult has it been? How easy has it been? Have they been men, women? Has there not been anyone at all, really?
Yeah, it's always been a little challenging for me to find one or two role models, because I'm wired in a way that I see a lot of value that people bring in the smallest of the ways. And as you're all talking, I've just made keynotes on some really amazing things you all bring to the table. So you all have been role models in some sense with a little interaction I've had with you. In my career journey, how it has helped me is because I've always been fascinated by a seat at the table, at how people have been successful and how people have found the courage and strength to be where they are. And I kept looking at that, and that helped me in some sense to be where I am, and I continue to go somewhere wherever I have to. I think the challenge, and I must also talk about, is that when you see people in leadership positions and in power, there's a lot of responsibility we hold as leaders. And the challenge for me in my corporate journey, and I don't know if many people talk about it or have experienced it, but I still want to say that for the longest time, I did not find women leaders who could champion me. So this could be a very controversial statement to make, but it was very hard to find women who could see me successful, or to find success in other women's success. I thought it was a coincidence, or I thought it was my bad luck, but it took me a while to, and all this while I used to keep finding faults in me, that maybe there's something I'm doing that people are not liking. But over my journey, that what I've experienced is that whether a man or a woman, I think somebody who is really very secure in themselves and is very sure about what they bring to the table will always have a nurturing environment created for others, and they will create a lot of psychological safety for others around them. And coming to my recent workspace that I am at Broadridge, and I just feel so blessed, and I hope I don't jinx it ever, but the women leaders that I have found at Broadridge is a dream. And I have written to them and I've spoken to them about it, that I don't know how that happened, because I had almost lost hope that I could ever find women who could support me. Because there's so many struggles that women go through, and there are a lot of internal struggles women go through. A lot of us go through a lot of confidence issues, because of which it is very hard for some of us to see other people grow, especially other women grow. But here at Broadridge, I find, right from Sheena Mori, who's the managing director, the way she supports all women and men and other genders is fascinating to me. So I saw a common thread in Sheenam, my leader who I report into, Rupashri, and the HR head Ritu. I saw one common thing in them, that they are very secure secure in their place. They feel very strong. They know what they bring to the table. So if I have internal security is when I can pass on. I can be abundant. So I think in that sense, in the current space, these people have been my role models. In fact, as Maya said, there are so many other people who you can't speak about who have always been role models.
That's interesting. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think it's a point well made. And while what you said may be perceived as mildly controversial by people, I think it's important to understand that that sense of security is important for you to allow people who are working for you to be able to grow as well. And I'm sure that's something that everyone here is internalizing. I'm internalizing that as an entrepreneur when I have people working for me and realizing that some of them are supremely more skilled than I am possibly, but you have to give them the space to grow. Maya, you've been a people person kind of all your life, and there's this famous adage saying people join organizations but quit their managers. How have your bosses, your managers been? How important have they been to for you to progress your journey? You don't have to name names, of course, but just some maybe key experiences that you can share.
Yeah, I think managers make or break experiences, make or break confidence, make or break careers. Managers, key stakeholders, let me put it that way. So, for me personally, I would say I got lucky. But that can't be a strategy, right? Luck can't be a strategy. But what I will say is, I think 2-3 hacks. One is the power of observation. I can't talk about this enough. There's so many things that one can learn when you just observe, what's going on. Second is the power of listening. There is so much one learns when you listen, I think, versus when you speak. So I've applied the same strategy for all the people I've reported to, which is I observe them and I listen. And it is incredible what one can learn, and also what one wants to choose to unlearn. Because people are not perfect. Managers are not gods. They're just people like the rest of us, right? They have their own struggles. They have their own career aspirations and everything. I think I will just fast forward to say that all that observation and all that listening, I am now trying to put in practice in my role, because I'm very conscious that I am leading a fairly large team. I'm responsible for all the people of Versailles. And so all of that power, observation listening is useless if one doesn't put it into action. So this is my third lesson, which is actions always speak louder than words. You can say I'm empathetic, you can say I'm an HR head, and you can be the most awful person, right? It has to match. And I take a lot of credit in trying my best to always do that. So if somebody connects with me, or if somebody wants a listening ear, and there's always what is said and unsaid, right? You ask somebody, how are you? They'll be like, perfectly fine. On their face that it's not. So do you pick up the signals that is unsaid? So I would say in terms of role models, it's too long a list. But what I would just leave as lessons learned is observation, listening, and truly finding that, if you're a leader, you have to be, I can't agree with Shreya more, which is you have to find your peace first. Otherwise, you will unleash your stuff on people around you, at home and at work. So it's not easy to be a leader, and I have huge respect for people who say, I don't want people reporting to me. Hats off to you, because you have recognized what you can and cannot do. But if you take the role of a leader, it is a big, big responsibility, and one must find joy in that. Otherwise, there's no point. So for me personally, I find a lot of joy in a very humble way leading others, because it's a lot of learning, unlearning, and especially with the mixed workforce that we have, you really unlearn and learn every day. So as long as you're up for all of that, please aspire to lead people. And if you're not up for it, perfectly fine. You can be an individual contributor, an expert, at whatever you do. Yeah.
Yeah, that is such a well-made point, Maya, because this is something that even I have wondered when I have a couple of friends who are, extremely good at their job, but don't want to go anywhere near, leading a team of
They
people.
shouldn't. If they don't want to, they shouldn't.
And my constant thing was, what is wrong with you? This is something that you should do. This is your natural career progression. Then you realize that, okay, it's much better that you don't go there. Much better for yourself and much better for the people there, that you don't go down that path. So that was a point very well made. Dr. Akshata, let me ask you, in your field, fairly fledgling field in India, not too many examples of people who have done this or organizations which have done this in a very big way over here. It's evolved over, I would say it's evolved relatively newer as compared to say tech, which you can say is about 35 years, 40 years old. This is about maybe 15, 20 years old right now. Who have been your key inspirations? Who has driven you to achieve what you've achieved today?
Yeah. Okay. It's more comparatory, because I would, since this industry is not something that was there like 3 decades back, right? So it's been there or evolving rather 15 years now. Initially, it started as a service industry for some of the companies that were there in India or exist to be. And then now we have the core companies coming down to India in the last decade. So, but my inspiration has been comparatory, because there were a few other women who did it as first in their times, right? For example, my mom has been one among them. So she's worked 35 years in the banking industry. She probably didn't know what was banking, while she was studying. So she initially started in the press, and then back those days, women didn't have an option of making choices of their career. It's like you have no choice left and they pick up something. So that was the stage back then. But then when there was a banking opening, she took it over and she continued for 35 years. The challenges that she's faced, probably I'm facing half of them. I can say that, I can delegate a lot of my responsibility at home to someone else, while she didn't have those options. She kept traveling. I can still make up few career choices for myself. She didn't have that. So, okay, you don't get to change your career as per your will there. You don't get to switch jobs. And, she continued. She took up certain promotions. Sometimes she didn't take up promotions because she would have to then leave the state and move to another state, and then compromising our careers. When I say our careers, I have a brother. So that was not a choice for her. While now it's more co-parenting and women tend to make, choices. And that's the evolve that we have right now. But just like how Mr. Arvind said, there's much more that we can do in this space as well, and being conscious about that is more important. And she continued for all 35 years. Today, when I ask her, do you regret any decisions? She's like, no, I'm proud that I continued for all those years. And I was financially independent. So that was her aim, So, and I love that. So this is new to me, but just like her, I have much more support. There's that whole internet that allows me to learn. And I think we are better in networking. We get opportunities to network people within India, people just like how I have my co-panelist here, as well as, people abroad. And then you get to learn a lot. There's so much about cross-culture sharing and everything which they didn't have. So I think I would say we are more blessed than they are. So that's been my inspiration.
Absolutely. I mean, that's wonderful. And I think, for the previous generation, it is truly an order of magnitude more challenging than it is for, many of us over here. And our parents have truly been amazing at what they've done to get many of us to the places that we've reached, and that streak certainly runs in you to be a pioneer, I'm sure, and I can see that. So, Shalini, we'll come to you. You must have, of course, worked with you made a very interesting point when you first spoke that it was not just your bosses, but the 60, 65 people who worked for you who kind of, pushed you upwards and onwards. But at various key points of time, there may have been mentors who have been kind of bouncing boards or sounding boards for you when you were taking some key decisions, or perhaps when you were offered a role and figuring if you want to make that step. While your inherent fearlessness was there, how important was this ecosystem for you?
Sure. I'm calling it fearlessness now. Probably it was being dumb at that point, but
we should always be kind in hindsight, right?
I know. I want to be to myself. Listen, I think I've had so many mentors. Like I said, people who would be behind my back when I was not in the room. That is the most important thing we need. Not people who tell you you're great in front of you, but when you're not there, who fights for you? I think that's the most critical thing. I've had many. I have immense gratitude for so many people. And they did not even call themselves as so-called mentors. They just helped. And I think that for me, mentorship is both that one-on-one aspect, but also the power of community and what we build, right? Whether it's an organization and how do we nurture that has been a big, big focus for me. Coming back on my mentors, role models, at workplace, one of the things that helped me, organization designs and structures have evolved over the last 20-30 years in India as well. Let's all acknowledge, right? Today we are in a much better place where we're talking about these things as constructs. We did not have many of that in a lot of our early journeys. Back then, essentially whoever was your supervisor became your be all and one all, because you were not networked in the entire organization. It was all a black box. So that way, I learned from both good and not so good managers. Because it's very critical. It gives you an opportunity not only to reflect about them but also about you. So that has been a big source of learning. So a lot of mentors in my managers, but also beyond that. I think what really opened up the world of mentorship for me was when I had the opportunity of working, traveling, and staying in multiple countries. The fact that you can open up easily and ask without any shame for help. It was not easy in the beginning. Here, it was always about, okay, I will prove that I know everything. So how do you even go and ask for help, right? Even when you're looking for a mentor, you have to acknowledge that you want to do something, you want to learn something from somebody. And that's a very hard, today it's a very accepted practice. In fact, today we encourage everybody to go and seek mentorship. It was not the case early on. I think that was an eye-opening thing when I was in different cultures. And some of my best mentors have been across the globe. And they had no idea of my culture, my background. I had no idea of what they came from. Like one of these leaders, he's no more unfortunately in the world. He came from an African American background, rose through the ranks of really being one of the senior most financial leaders. I don't know what reason he took me under his wing. Not that I was any special. But the amount of things I learned, not only because of the day-to-day, the skills he taught, etc., but power of observation, how he would synthesize, how he would connect the dots, which is what gives me confidence. I may know 1% of the 10 million things I need to know, but I know how do I connect my 1% to the next 10% and the next 100 things, right? The third thing was his journey of what does it mean to be an African American in United States of America back then, when you did not have these movements like, Black Lives Matter, and how he would connect that journey back to where I come from, what is our background of Great Britain to India, how does that lead into a confidence and what does that mean to me? So he really helped me understand more about me than just the career choices. So for me, best mentors are always people who question you, who make you look at a mirror every day, but are kind to you. So for me, it's not just one person, two people. Today, every single person is a mentor. mentor, and this may sound like an abuse statement. Everybody says this, but for me, if it is helping any day, every single day, is this ability for me to go seek help, irrespective of the cadre, the designations, the levels, and learn, because the journey that the person comes from is far, far more insightful to us to learn than what they do in the role. And my latest mentor today, by the way, some of them are lifelong mentors for me. So I still go to them irrespective of whether they're in my job or not. I still ask them, am I doing something dumb? Am I doing this right? I'm going through this. Sometimes just having that conversation itself helps that. So lastly, I'll leave the mentorship with having a safe space where it's fairly non-judgmental, but still ask you the questions. I think that's what, if you get, don't leave them.
Great. Some really great points there. I think that to have a mentor who will show you the mirror, but give you that empathy and kindness, and then how do you nurture that? And you don't learn from skills, you actually learn from experiences. I think skills are built over a period of time with experience, but those experiences are what can be valuable rather than skills at a certain level. You're not going to go and ask, how do I write this piece of code, or how do I, balance this balance sheet? But it's more about the experiences itself. One last question before we throw it open to the audience, and this is specific to your respective organizations and how DEI, if you want to call it that, initiatives are being rolled out in your organizations. What have been some success stories? What have been some challenges? And Maya, if we can start with you, give us a sense of the size of your organization, what the current kind of gender ratios might be, and what are some of the initiatives that you've been at the forefront of rolling out?
Sure. So Verse is a digital media conglomerate. So we have 15 lines of businesses. It's an Indian-grown company. You may have heard of Daily Hunt, the news app. So that is one of the 15 product lines of the company. So we serve 1 in every 2 internet users in India use or consume one of our products, either for news or infotainment or any other content. So the scale at which we operate is huge. So we have chosen to define diversity, equity, inclusion our way, not the way the classical way. So our definition is, we are serving Bharat. We are serving 27 plus states in this country, multiple languages, multiple age groups. So do we have that in the company? Because if we are not that, then who are we to serve an audience of that, right? So one is state, language and age diversity, because that's the business we are in. Second is respect for youth and the crazy stuff that they bring to the workspace, and respect for the wisdom and a couple of gray hairs that some of us have. I have it, it's under my curls, but the wisdom that both these sets of people bring, and it's not all Gen Z, it's not all Gen Alpha, it's the others as well. So the cumulative wisdom and experience of the company. Third is, who takes decisions in Verse? So there are 2,200 employees in the company, but 2,200 employees don't take decisions that affect the company. We have, let's say, an X number of employees who take decisions. So we look at that set very, very closely, because the fortunes of the company, of the rest of the employees in the business, of all the investors who have invested in us is based on that set who are taking decisions, and are they diverse, equitable, and are we inclusive to that group also? So we look at that very, very closely. If we have, let's say, 70 employees who take decisions, if that mix is not correct, then we have failed. So we don't look at the classical, how many men do we have, how many women do we have. Of course, we look at it, but it doesn't make any difference in my mind. So I'll just summarize, who are the decision makers in your company? That group do they represent what the company wants to represent? 2, if you're serving, companies only exist because we are serving something and somebody thinks it's useful and they pay for it. So if we don't understand our audience, who are we to exist? And the third is, I think, the power of difficult conversations. Diversity, equity, inclusion, to have an environment that is good, comfortable, safe, where you just can be yourself, it's not easy. It takes difficult conversations. So the other day, we were having a sales review. There's a particular line of business that has 5 leaders, 4 men, 1 woman. So the business leader was challenging them, saying, y'all are not working well together. Y'all are just faking it in front of me. You are not catching up. The 5 of you are seated at this table only when we have a review. I don't see you having coffee. I don't see you having lunch together. So one of them started to explain, sir, we are 4 boys. He said, wait, let's stop this conversation. I am not interested on the gender. I am interested, are you leaders who are working well together? So I think it's also the questions we ask in the company, which I think sometimes we are overdoing the men-women thing. It's actually much more than that. To have a truly diverse, equitable and inclusive workspace, it's much more than just gender. It's respect for age. It's respect for crazy stuff that the youth bring. We had a candidate he's a happy employee now, but he was a candidate at one point and he said, I'm in a band. 6 months, that's my life. 6 months, I can give to Versailles. Are you okay? Not okay. Very transparent. Now, it's on us, right? If we hire him, if we don't hire him, we're losing a talent. So, it's the decisions you take as well. So, may not be the typical answer, but we have chosen that we will define what is diversity, equity, inclusion, and be true to that. So, that's my take.
What I take out of that is all structures are being broken down today in every manner possible, right? You can't hire the way you used to. You can't make job offers the way you used to. COVID has particularly upended everything, and, no different with DEI as well and the way it's being looked at. I'll come to you, Shreya. Broadridge is fintech. Is that, in what way does the fintech space kind of attract talent? How easy or difficult it is? Is it to manage that talent pool and process? And, how does some of this pan out internally in terms of making sure that this is something that people are conscious about, but, are also kind of leveraging to, and not just ticking off a box, but actually leveraging to make business better?
Yeah. So, as Arvindji started the keynote and spoke about, there are things that can happen at the surface, at the facade, but what we do inside is a lot of times different, and I think there has to be a lot of genuine symmetry between the two. So at Broadridge here, at least in India, so at India we're a 5,000 plus member organization. We call ourselves associates, and it's a US based fintech organizations. We provide diverse financial solutions. Broadridge is going through a very interesting and one of its kinds transformation, where for years, for the longest time, the org has been a delivery center and has behaved like a delivery unit. So there were orders, literally as we spoke, the orders were given and we served. So, and another interesting dynamic at Broadridge is that we've had people with an average tenure of 10 to 12 years, which is huge. We have folks who are homegrown, 30 years in the organization. They started their first job at Broadridge and today we are vice presidents and executives in the org. So what we are struggling with or trying to tap into, as Maya mentioned, is not the stereotypical buzzword of diversity. I think instead of DEI, we're going the IED way, because it's very important for us to ensure that everybody feels included in the organization. It can't be just a man or a woman or somebody from another gender or differently abled. It is those who are tenured, who are feeling at times uninvolved, because now, they sit with so much domain expertise, and suddenly you have to become a global citizen. You have a seat at the table, but you don't really believe that you have a seat at the table. So our first work from a DEI standpoint is to make sure that everyone in the organization feels included. Those who are tenured and also those who are joining in from campus. Everything is new for them, and everyone else in between. So inclusivity, a genuine inclusivity, is something that we're working towards, and talent development, the function that I represent, we're doing it through initiatives like I Am Remarkable, and I am certified as an I Am Remarkable facilitator, to ensure that everybody feels good about what they bring to the table. And we run these quarterly workshops and ensure that everyone joins. We send it across the org. It was started by Google initially for women, but no more is it just for women, it's everybody. And we ensure that everyone in the organization, by the end, 5,000 associates should have had an opportunity to be in IAR workshops. And we're also ensuring more and more people come in and become certified. So as Arvindji also mentioned, that it just can't be a woman's duty or an HR responsibility to work towards equity and diversity. It has to be the entire village that works together. So we ensure that another culture that we have at Broadridge is that we have leaders as teachers. All leaders, irrespective of the gender, partner with the learning and development team. Whether it's an I Am Remarkable program or any other program, our leaders teach others so that you feel involved and included. Coming to equity, we are ensuring that from a hiring standpoint, we hire for, and of course from a hiring standpoint and otherwise pay parity, we are trying to bring a seat at the table for everyone. We are ensuring that there's equity across the organization, because it's not easy to bring that. In India, we had very different pay parity systems. Globally, there was something else. We've tried to match that now. So internally, the org is working at 10x speed to ensure that from inclusivity, we are able to bring in equity. And once that happens, there are significant efforts being made to ensure that we are all diverse. If we feel included, and if we feel that I have a seat at the table, I have the right pay package, money matters to all of us, I'm getting the right money for the job that I represent, I think then other things will automatically follow. And there are a lot of specific hiring activities that our talent acquisition team takes care of. We partner with vendors who reach out to pride communities, and in Q2 of Broadridge, we've hired 3 people from pride communities. So we're genuinely making efforts from all across to see that we can make a needle movement.
That's amazing to hear. There's no surprise that the program is called I Am Remarkable, and you are one of the certified trainers. You are remarkable, and that's a really good to know about initiative and how something like that is panning out. And that very important point that she made, I mean, we often kind of say all that is fine, but that important aspect of money we just like forget, right? We assume that that's all right, if everything else is equitable, it's fine, but that's also very, very important. So thank you for making that point. Dr. Akshata, in a global pharma major like Merck, there must be initiatives that are being rolled out, of course, at a global level. And then you said you yourself have been spearheading some initiatives at an India level to kind of bring about this sense of DEI, diversity, inclusion within the organization. Tell us about some interesting things that possibly people can learn from and take home.
Sure. So, of course, there are a lot of initiatives which are there from the organization, and plus we also hear out from people. So we allow people to volunteer themselves and come up and join groups, because I think that's more important. Any culture or change to happen in an organization, it should come hand in hand together, and that's been the core of it. So while at Merck, we have a lot of initiatives around the diversity, inclusion, as per, also when there are major events happening worldwide, we do consider that, but then we just don't celebrate it for a day. Just pulling out some examples, like Women's Day, we all know we do celebrate it, but then we do it for the whole month. We would have a lot of speakers from external and internal to come up and talk. So it could be a fireside chat, or it could be just an open hour conversation, because we know a lot of people like us would correlate if there are a few examples which are relevant to us. So but just by having one person, probably it's not enough. So bring in good examples from industry and internal, where then people are inspired and that helps them to move ahead in life, so that has been one. And then we have many initiatives, global initiatives like Voice Program for women, empowering, or enabling women who are in the emerging leadership kind of roles. So again, help them with the skills that they need to adapt. And we also do some of the other local initiatives is, yes, we have an academia group. We make sure, again, talking about what Mr. Arvind said, not having the conscious biasness towards while hiring. So we make sure we're not doing that. We talk about it quite openly. The HR and the talent acquisition also make sure that, during the hiring, this is not what we are looking at. We are just hiring the person, irrespective of the gender. We are hiring the person for the skills that they bring in on the table. And that actually takes a lot, I can just spontaneously think of some examples as well. Sometimes what happens is, this is not now, but in the past, when I sit with the interviewers, somehow I observe that the interviewer is asking certain questions. Okay, for women employees who are looking for a job, that okay, we ask for questions such as married, fine, how many years? I'm like, you don't ask that question for everyone. Why are you asking for women employees? And then it's subconscious. You just know. You just want to look at, okay, maybe childbearing potential. Arey, ye to baad mein nahi aayegi. She's going to go on a long break. So this is something that you need to avoid, and this is something that we need to speak about. As lead, I also talk about it to my team leads to make sure. And then people think, yeah, this comes, this happens, but this is where these are small steps, but you need to make those conscious efforts there. It could even be, this is one example, but there are many more. Somebody who is 28, 29, is she going to get married and probably move ahead to the spouse's place? Not necessary. Today's world has changed. So this is where you need to make continuous changes, and that we are trying there. And there are many more initiatives. We have something called as empowered women, empower women to again take up other roles. So this is a year-long activity. It's called as Will's program. We have a lot of people coming up and talking about their journeys, just like how we are doing it here. But then the difference is, and the challenge there is just like how we have less male representative. So what we do there is, then we ask male speakers also to come up and talk, and that's how then you drive that equality there. So that's something about some of the initiatives that we're doing, but there are much more as well.
Thank you. That point you made is very well taken. There are so many biases, conscious and unconscious, and sometimes it just needs to be driven home that some of these things are not done, right? I mean, and that even if that's a brute force way of doing it, that's possibly one way of bringing about the change, because whether that bias of asking a question like how many years you've been married is conscious or unconscious, I don't know, but sometimes it just has to be said that it's not done. You cannot do that. So that's great to hear. I know we have a thing here that's saying time's up. That's all right. Arvind is always kind to us in terms of giving us a little extra time. Yeah, I'm not even turning that side. I'm only looking at you. You're the boss. Okay. So Shalini, as a leader, as an organization-wide leader, how do you drive some of this down, especially through your immediate reporting A-team? What's the composition of your immediate reportees? By the way, that's something I wanted to ask. And how do you drive some of this? You already mentioned through both your own actions, but also at some kind of an initiative level or policy level through the organization.
Thankfully, we have a lot of the initiatives that's been discussed, so I will try not to touch upon that. It looks like we're all doing good work. Just coming back to composition, I guess composition from a gender standpoint, I'm privileged to have about 60% women, 40% men. And across age, across designations. So I've been very conscious in that my next level leadership team is not about X amount of gray haired, everybody looking and thinking like me. It should not be. That has been a constant effort. So I have associates who are earlier in career all the way till. So it's completely about the function they lead and what they do, and are they the best to be there in terms of decision making. So that's one conscious choice we've made. Multiple programs, Venki, multiple programs. But if I think of a couple of them, like one of them is called Connect Coach Care program that we are running for all of the leaders, which is truly about inclusion, which is today the construct of leaders, managers has completely changed. Half of us are not leading. We don't have followers, right? Lead means you need somebody to follow. Today, everybody is leading, whether we like it or not. Today is a highly networked organization. Like entry-level grad can be talking to my CEO over a Slack message. There is hierarchy is pretty much broken the traditional way. So I think just recognizing that, I see in a lot of organizations too, my friends, I think that itself is the first attempt that we have to drive. So number one way of being inclusion is does everybody have access to everybody in the organization? Starts there. We do. It creates a lot of problems, believe me, but we do, which means it puts that additional onus on leaders to really justify what is it that they're doing. So which is where we are redefining the whole leadership as connect, coach and care. That's your job. You obviously have to do your delivery metrics and all that. That's roti kapda makan, that's table stakes. But what do you do with people? You connect, you coach, and you care. If you can't do that, you're not at the right table. So is one very, very strong thing that we drive. And CEO down, one value I see in the current organization I'm in, and I'm a big fan of it, is true authenticity. I have not seen this in many corporates, and I'm probably making some controversial statements here, because we tend to either sugarcoat messages when it comes to our associates, or we tend to give a very filtered view, either a rosy-eyed view or a very filtered view, assuming that there's a lot of things going on, but you need to know only this. For me, that is the first step where you're breaking inclusion, right? Point is, if you're an employee, if you're working for this organization, probably half of them are stakeholders, because you're holding, at the end of the day, stocks. Then we need to know what's really going on in the organization. We all have the right to do that. We start inclusion back there. Every single thing, good, bad, ugly, that's happening in the organization, whether it's business, financials, customer, product, tech, people, everything we speak. And that's a value I'm driving, absolutely taking it and driving it in India. And it's not easy, because what I have seen in most India entities, this is new. It creates a lot of stir and concern that why is this information coming to me? What do I do with it? What does it mean to me? So I'm just bringing different sets of elements of inclusion beyond what we spoke. I would leave it at that. Many, many more things going on, but authenticity is definitely probably at the cornerstone of being diverse, equal, and inclusive.
Very, very good point. Thank you so much. I mean, and I don't know if you caught the nuance in what she said. It's not just about disseminating the information, but even as a recipient of that information, you need to know what to, actually do with it, right? We seem to be completely out of time. Can we do 2 questions? Yeah? Let's do 2 questions. I know lots of hands raised. There's going to be also time to catch up with our panelists over tea, coffee at some point of time, but we'll just do a couple of questions in the interest of time and then hand it over. Let me invert the paradigm and go gents first and ask the gentleman there to ask his question. Yeah, is there a mic that you can give him, please? Please introduce yourself, and if your question is pointed at one of the panelists, please call out who it is to.
I worked for a long time. My name is Rajiv. I'm an independent HR consultant, but I worked for many years with the IT industry. What I observed is, and this has been for many years, it's the same trend. The lady comes and says, I'm leaving. And say, what is the reason? She says, joining spouse. Okay, and many times I've seen that they are about to get into very key roles in the company, and they sacrifice their career and lose out on their careers just to accommodate spouse moving outside. But I never see the other way around. The guy leaving and saying I'm joining the spouse. So, what advice do you have for such situation for the people who are going to face this challenge? And did any of you face any such decision? Because I think a decision like this needs a very mature discussion. And typical in Asia and in India, the tendency is, the male gets the preference in terms of career. So, any of you can share panelists, but any of you can share your thoughts.
sides here. As a maybe as an employee, my first answer would be, and then if I see that okay, there's no way of retaining this person because she's made a personal choice that she's got to move. Probably she's had a recent child, and then she cannot continue taking care of the child all alone while say the spouse is in US or Europe. So that's going to be challenging there, right? So then you understand. But then I also try to discuss that probably again, quitting is not an option. If you have choices of reapplying somewhere else and maybe even for the same company when you even move out, then that should be there. If not, continue working in wherever you are. That's what I would do a personal advice. But there have been other instances as well, especially people coming back from mat leave. They've been on long breaks, right? 6 to 9 months, and then they hesitate to talk it out to the supervisors. So the first inhibition there, they need to break. They need to talk about it. They already have apprehensions. They feel, I'm not good enough now. After 9 months, I have a huge gap. I'm not able to cover that gap. So probably the right time to just continue with the break. Now that is something that shouldn't be there in women. So probably the managers also supporting them, talking to them in few intervals, not really pushing them to come back to work early, but rather understanding the situation and motivating them. So that's more important. And this has worked. This has worked in a lot of cases. We then try to help them customize a development program or, learning opportunity for the next 3 months or 4 months when they join back, and then help them to be on par with the rest. They have a lot of anxiety. I think we need to understand that when anybody, even in case of men, they take a long break, they just can't come back quickly. So need to allow that development path and then, help them be one with all. But in that particular situation, I would probably allow in case they're not able to join, but then still continue with work should be important.
One tangential point to that, and we have a lot of young women here sitting, and potentially if you choose the path of getting married, I see every reaction in the world has an action. I think if we go back to our personal roots also, when we look at the matrimonial ads and when we go and choose spouses, especially if it's not the love marriage, but it's an arranged setup, the parents of women are always looking for men who are more financially secure. So imagine the kind of burden that men in India, South Asia, India experience, the kind of financial burden and responsibility that instills largely on men, even today, even sitting in 2024, we're almost in 2025, it sits on them. So because that kind of pedestal is given to men, and men feel that even if they don't want to do it, they can't start making candles and chocolate one fine day. They don't have that luxury and liberty. So which is why if the man gets an opportunity, unfortunately, invariably, it is the woman who goes for it because the woman signed up for a man who was financially more able. So I think a lot of things also have to change in the family dynamics for it to change at work. Everything is a mix. Everything is interrelated. It can't exist in silos.
Maybe just to add, I'm one example where I took a job in Bangalore and then my husband joined to Bangalore. He's not from Bangalore. So things are changing.
Funny. Sometimes we have to, these are great points, plus work from home, I think, has changed a lot of dynamics. I have been a recipient of that privilege for a long time, believe me. And this week is really gone. So, but a funny example is the question you asked as to why women follow men. One is the financial security, right? Family structure. Sometimes it's also about just ecosystem support. Like if you're a new mother, you don't have a creche nearby. I went through it myself when I had my baby, right? So there are times when I was still a younger manager. I said, let me find out creches for you. So I think it's also about, as if we're putting on a leadership hat, how much are we committed to really making that person continue to work? Assuming that it's a real choice that they have to make. A lot of things have changed and improved, though, believe me, but a lot more to do.
Okay, we'll do one more question and then we'll wrap it up. Yes, ma'am, please.
My name is Akshata. So one thing which is clearly coming out from this channel is like how landscape has completely changed. Few years ago, what are the conversations that we used to have, DE&I and all the other areas, right? So today, more of, it's about practical, what we are practicing, what is the action being taken. That's what I wanted to see. And all the initiatives being taken in each one of your organizations, like how we are completely breaking the gender parity. It's nothing to do with men doing something, women doing something, or career coaches here, as Shalini mentioned. It's so heartening. Thank you so much for bringing out that what is happening today in the industry. My question is again from what all of you have shared. Today we have probably 5 or 6 generations working in a single team, right? Forget about the entire organization. The multi-generational teams managing, especially I'm working as a coach, I'm an executive coach. I coach all the decision makers that Maya you mentioned, all the senior leaders that you mentioned. One of the challenges, every one of them faces unlearning certain beliefs, so that they have on Gen Z, Gen Alpha, whatever the new names that we have been giving. It can be a rapid fire or whoever wants to take it. What is one thing that you are unlearning or you would like the senior people, decision makers to unlearn?
Maya, you can take that first, yeah.
Yes, so I'll put the headline on that is, if you are a person in the workforce today, especially if you're leading people or you're in decision-making roles, you need to be relevant. The company needs to be relevant. Otherwise, today the lifespan of companies is in a blink of an eye, right? I mean, I think it's slightly better than the lifespan of restaurants in Bangalore, but it is short, and you can just get taken over, so one is a business reason. If you are not looking at what's going on in the market, if you're not connected to what's happening in the market, you will not be relevant as a company, as a person, as a leader. So how do you stay relevant, right? You have to, again, listen, observe, and you have to leave behind. So I think in India, it's a little bit more difficult because we have the cocoons of work and society are in such friction with each other. The developments, the respect, the placement of people in workplace versus when they go back home, there is still a big contrast. That I can say, I am CHRO versus innovation, blah, blah, blah. If I go home, that holding may not stand. I mean, it may not be at the same level, right? I'm a mother to a teenager. Those who have teenagers will know what I'm talking about. So I'm saying there is friction. So, unlearning, if you don't, you will be unlearned from the company, from your job, from your from the professional ecosystem at least. So one is for your own survival, you better start unlearning. And 2 is for the sake of the role that you're doing, you better unlearn. And for the sake of the company that you're trying to lead, you better unlearn. So for me, it's very black and white. There is no choice here. I will think about unlearning. No. No.
Very true. And it comes down to value creation. I think all of us struggle. Somewhere we place value as to tenure, wisdom, expertise, and that's where the value is. That's the first thing we have to unlearn, and that's what we all are going through, all our leaders. Value can be generated from anybody sitting as an associate. So, I would start there.
Thank you very much. I think on that note, we shall wrap up this really amazing panel. Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a big round of applause for our panelists? That was, I think, possibly one of the best ways to kick off AWLS season 14, and truly insightful, experiential, anecdotal, and what we would colloquially call no gyan panel. All very, except for the last bit that Maya said, you don't have a choice to not unlearn. You have to unlearn. Except for that, nothing very prescriptive. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you internalized it. There is to be, hopefully we will have them around for a little while longer, and you can interact with them and ask your questions. I think on that note, thank you very much, all of you. That was wonderful. Thank you. Namita, Nikhil, back to you.
While the panel was speaking, I couldn't help but notice how attentive each one of them was when the other person was sharing their journey and cheering in silence.
Still learning and unlearning.
Yeah, very true. So I think that's the key, that we as a leader have to create that support system where we not only cheer for others, but also coach them, mentor them, and be there so that they can grow in their career. On that note, I would like to share my keynotes under 1 minute, not taking more time. And I'm taking the liberty to paraphrase each one of you have said. Shreya focused on grit and never give up attitude, whereas Dr. Akshata emphasized on walking the less traveled path in their career. Maya, however, emphasized on standing up for yourself and be independent in your life. And Shalini spoke of hard work, humility, and fearlessness. I think these are some of the most powerful words that we can take away from here and apply in our life. We couldn't have found the answers of the question we didn't know if it wasn't for Venki. So thank you so much for asking such amazing question and getting the best out of the panel. Now I would like to invite Mr. Arvind to share a token of gratitude to the panelists. Coffee break. Grab your coffee, chai, and please come back here for the next session. Thank you.